In this video, I'm going to show you a one product store strategy that has taken one of my stores from zero to over $800,000 in just a few months. So I'm not going to be holding back in this video. This is literally going to be an A to Z approach, starting from how I found the product, how I sourced it, how I set up my store, how I ran the ads, and how I built a strong backend to make more money out of all of my customers, and also showing you guys how I private labeled my product so that I can have custom packaging and custom logos so that I can separate myself from all of the dropshippers who are just selling generic versions of my product. So without further ado, let's get straight into the value. So before we get into everything, let me go ahead and refresh my dashboard and run you through some of the numbers behind the store. So basically, I found this product in September, and that's when I started testing it. I did around 18K in sales in that month. And then as we got closer to Christmas, sales started picking up, and I did around 120K in October, 300K in November, and 300K in December. But because this was a really seasonal based product that sold really well in Christmas, sales pretty much died out right after, and I only did 20K in January, 40K in February, and since then just around 10K per month. And to be even more transparent with you guys, this is my profit within the last 30 days of the store. Did around $14,000 in the last 30 days with a net profit of $2,000, 15% margin, which obviously isn't the best, but I think this is pretty good considering the fact that I don't even really run this store anymore. It was more of like a side project for me, and most of my effort is actually towards my actual brand that I've been running for a couple years now, which has done 300K in the last 90 days. But this store right here is another story for another day. I just wanted to focus on this store right here just to give you guys a step-by-step approach on what I did to achieve these numbers. So now let me get into how I actually found the product. So basically what happened is that I was on my TikTok burner account. In case you don't know what that is, it's basically where you set up a brand new TikTok account, look up hashtags like TikTok made me buy it, Amazon finds, and what you're gonna do is like a bunch of those videos within those hashtags, engage with them, comment on them, and then naturally you're gonna see your For You page start to show you a lot more products where people are either doing unboxing, review style videos, and basically what's gonna happen after a couple of weeks is that your For You page is going to be filled with a bunch of dropshipping products. So what happened with me is that I was scrolling and I happened to run across this video with 2 million views that was just posted like 2 days ago. And it was simply this person unboxing the product, setting it up, and then showing the end result in their home. And then when I clicked in the comments, I noticed that there was a lot of people saying, oh my God, this is the coolest product I've ever seen in my life. Where do I buy it? And basically just a lot of positivity. If you've been watching my channel for some time, you know that this is the #1 factor that I always look for when I am running across videos on my TikTok or even my Facebook feed. And then what I did after is that I went onto the TikTok search bar, I looked up keywords of that product just to see if there were any other dropshippers selling that product. And I quickly noticed that no one else was selling this product, and that was simply due to the fact that it was very brand new, and the only video that was going viral was that video that I ran into on my feed, and it wasn't even from a dropshipper. And one of the best parts about this product is that it marketed itself, meaning that I didn't even have to put in any effort to try to sell that product to customers, and that's because the product looked so cool that it did all of the selling. And this is yet another thing I always stress in my channel, and one of the best ways that you can see success as a beginner with zero marketing experience, and that is by looking for products with strong wow factors where you can literally record a 10-second video showing how that product works, and that is literally how you can scale that product. And to show you what I mean, here's a product that I ran into a couple of days ago, and it's a video that already has almost 1 million views. It was posted just under a month ago, and all this person is doing is simply showing how the product works. And this video got 20K likes, 3,000 saves, and a bunch of people on the comments saying how cool this product is, and they're overall just very, very interested in this product. And that is because it has a strong wow factor, and because it's so cool, it does all of the selling for you. Now, after I discovered that product on TikTok, the next thing that I did was look up keywords so that I could find at least one listing on AliExpress who was selling this product. And what I did is I copied that URL and I sent it to my supplier so that they can source it with better pricing and better shipping times than AliExpress. Because what you're gonna quickly notice with a lot of these sellers is that they have pretty bad ratings. So for example, this person selling this product has below average rating scores for selling products that are actually accurately described in his listings. He has bad ratings for communication and bad ratings for shipping speed, which is exactly what you don't want, because if you have a bad supplier, that is basically going to destroy your entire dropshipping business. And if I was a beginner and I want to make sure that I can dropship with the peace of mind, then I would use something like Zendrop. I'll leave a link down below so you can get a free account. And then once you're inside, you can use their request to product feature, paste in the AliExpress URL of the product. And then from here, you can request to get a quote for your product. And 9 times out of 10, the price you're gonna get with Zendrop is probably going to be better than AliExpress. So with this product, for example, it's costing us $27 to ship this product to customers in the US. Whereas with this AliExpress seller, he's charging $25 plus $12 in shipping, meaning that it's gonna cost like $37 to dropship this product, which makes Zendrop the obvious better choice, especially if I'm testing this product. Now, of course, as we all know, there is a tariff war going on with China in the US. So the quotes that we are getting to the US may be a little bit higher, but I'm here to tell you that dropshipping to the US is still 100% possible, and it's really just going to vary from product to product. But I think for a product like this, a $27 product cost is really not that bad, especially if we just mark up this product cost by 2.5, which is like my general rule of thumb when I am setting up a price on my store. So after multiplying this, it gives me $67, but I would just round it up to like $69.99 and then maybe charge my customers $7.99 in shipping, which is going to give me almost $78 per sale. And then if I subtract that by the original product cost, that means I'm still profiting $50 on every single sale to US customers. And if for whatever reason you can't make that work, you can also get quotes to a bunch of different countries that are also dropship friendly, such as the UK, where it's only costing us $21 to dropship to that country. So after I figured out how to source my product, the next thing was to actually set up my store. Now, as I mentioned in the beginning of this video, I set up a one product store, and this is generally the approach I like to go for if I'm really confident in the product that I'm selling. Otherwise, if I'm trying to test products like every single day, then I would probably use a general store, which I've talked about countless of times in my channel. But again, a one product store is pretty much the approach I took with the product. And for the design itself, I kept it really simple. I used whatever images that were available to me through AliExpress, and I just made sure to choose the highest quality ones that I show at the top of my product page. And then I just set up a couple of sections just highlighting the features and benefits of my product. I had a reviews widget so that I could build more social proof and credibility behind my store. And that's pretty much it. When it comes to product page design, it's something that you don't need to overcomplicate. And if you want, you could go into my channel, as I have a ton of different videos that talk about store design and what I personally do to get the highest conversion rates possible. So now let me talk about how I actually created the ads to test my product. So basically all I did is I found my product off of AliExpress, and then I just scrolled down a little bit and found a bunch of related listings selling the same exact product. And then I opened everything in a new tab. This way I can go through every tab and find out which ones actually have a video that I could potentially use as an ad. So for example, this seller has this video that looks like it was taken from their Chinese factory, which is typically the video I like to use in the testing phase, because normally you don't really have to worry about copyright issues or anything like that. But of course, definitely do your research, because sometimes these AliExpress sellers will be using content from other actual established creators, and you don't want to be using content like that when you are running ads. So then once I find some really simple content like this, I'll go ahead and download it and then use a free video editor. Me personally, I use CapCut, and then I just put together a simple 10-second video just showing how my product works. Now this ad style that you see here only really works with wow factor products that really speak for itself. Of course, if you're selling like a problem solving product, you're gonna have to do the conventional things like writing a script, having some UGC or things like that. But I'm literally showing you the type of ads that I ran for my product, and this is literally just an example of exactly what I did for mine. So what we're seeing here is simply just a person placing this torch lamp on their wall, but then I have this text caption that says, placing this so my responsibilities don't spawn tonight. The reason I say this is because it relates to the purpose of this object when you're actually playing Minecraft, but then I'm relating it to more real world things. And this is typically the language that works on social media. And again, this is a pretty similar caption that I used for my own product. And just to show you how I even thought of this caption, I just put a screenshot to ChatGPT and I told them to give me some TikTok style captions for this product. And then it gave me all these captions here. However, I think it was too literal for the game itself. So then I told it to relate it with more real world things that resemble a mob in their life, such as family members. And then you can see it gave me all of these different captions to choose from. But me personally, I think this one was the best one. And that is exactly what I used in this video. So after I completed my first video ad, I went ahead and created like 3 to 4 more variations. And I would either use the same exact footage, but just change out this caption with maybe something else that ChatGPT created for me. Or I would just use the same caption, but then I would just replace the piece of footage from another piece of footage that I found from another AliExpress seller. And then I just launched all 5 of my creatives into a Facebook ad campaign. And basically what I did is I separated all of my ads inside of its own ad sets, all with broad targeting and all spending $25 per day. Now, the reason I did this is because I was really confident in the product that I was selling, and I wanted to give an equal chance for every creative that I was launching, just because I knew the product had such a strong wow factor. And you can see within the first week of testing, 4 out of the 5 creatives that I tested ended up working and giving me a really profitable ROAS and also a really low cost per click. click. And what usually tells me whether my ad creatives are good is when I'm seeing cost per clicks that are really low within the 50 to 60 cents range. But don't worry if your ads are not within this range. Even if you get cost per clicks of $1 to $2 and you're still getting profitable purchases, that's what really matters at the end of the day. But of course, the more ads that you can get with really cheap cost per clicks, the more chances of success you're probably going to get. So this is the testing strategy that I used back in September of 2024. However, a lot of things have changed since then, and I've also switched up my testing strategy, especially with the tariff war going on between US and China. So I wanted to give you guys a testing strategy that you can use that's actually applicable today. So what I would personally do when I'm testing every single product is to test as many markets as possible, because we don't want to just be consolidating everything to the US, given that we need to increase our price points to this country for the time being. And this can really affect a lot of your results, especially if you're just a beginner and you're not really too good at building good offers or building more perceived value for your product. So what I have here are 3 CBO campaigns, all set at $50 each. I'll go ahead and select this US campaign just to give you a breakdown of how this looks like. So this campaign right here is set at $50 per day, and it's a CBO campaign. And CBO just stands for campaign budget optimization, and you can set it up in the campaign settings here, where you simply select campaign budget as the option, and basically your budget is going to be set at the campaign level. Inside this campaign, I have just one ad set that's targeting broad. So that means I'm not putting any interest or anything like that. I'm letting the Facebook algorithm find all of the buyers for me. And inside the ad set, I am optimizing for maximum number of conversions. I'm going with the purchase event. I always set my campaigns to run at the next day at midnight. And then of course I have my location set to US, and everything here is pretty much untouched. Then inside of this ad set is going to be a collection of all of the ads that I want to test. So whether I create 3 variations or 5 variations of my ad, they are all going to be attached inside of this one ad set. And basically what happens from here once we launch out this campaign is that Facebook is going to choose which ad it wants to spend a majority of its budget on. And usually when Facebook decides to spend money towards a specific ad, this is because there are certain elements and certain visuals within that ad that Facebook thinks that users on their platform is going to like. And then once you figure out which one of your ads are working, it's pretty simple from here. You just continue scaling your campaign by 20% every other day. And that's essentially what I did with my store. But I'm going to talk more about how I scaled my store in a later part of this video. But for now, I'm just going to walk you through the testing approach. So once you have your US CBO campaign, you just want to make 2 more duplicates, but instead these campaigns are going to be targeting different stacks of countries. So for example, I have the same exact campaign. However, when we look into the ad set, I have my location set to Canada, United Kingdom, and Australia. And this is because I want to see if we can find some success in some of these other English speaking countries, especially if the US just doesn't work out for us. And then I do the same thing with this other campaign, which is targeting European countries. If I open up this ad set and then scroll down below, you can see that this is the list of European countries that I decided to go with. If you want to easily copy and paste this list, I'll leave it down below in the description. But the reason I chose all of these countries is because this is what I've personally seen success with without even having to translate my ads or even translate my store, and by only offering Shopify payments and PayPal as a solution. So one thing you need to keep in mind if you decide to test to Europe is that there are certain countries that require certain payment methods. So the reason I don't have countries like Sweden, Finland, and Norway is because those countries require Klarna, which is not something that is easy to get, especially if you're a dropshipper. And when it comes to countries like Germany, this is a country that absolutely requires PayPal. So if you do not have PayPal, I would not even bother testing Germany, and you can go ahead and remove this out of the stack if you do not have PayPal. But for the most part, if you do have Shopify payments and PayPal, all of these countries should work for you. And then you can basically find out which ones are getting the most purchases, and then you can start doubling down towards those countries, and then obviously make more effort and start translating your ads, translate your store, and basically do everything you need to do to scale out to those countries. So that's basically the testing approach. We just have a total of 3 campaigns all running at $50 per day. So again, this is the testing strategy that I would personally use going into 2025. So once I launched out my first testing campaign and I started to see that I was getting a lot of results, there's always a few things I always do immediately on my store so that I can start maximizing my opportunities and make more out of all of my sales. That's going to eventually help me scale further. So first things first, I'm always going to implement as many upsell opportunities across my product page. So that means having widgets like this above my add to cart button, which is going to make it easy for my customers to buy multiple units of my product, which is going to help me make more out of all of my sales. And then when the customer adds the product to their cart, I'm also going to have other products that are similar to my main winning product. This way, it also increases the opportunity for customers to buy more stuff on my store. And let's say if a customer gets this far into my store where they add the product to their cart, but then they leave for whatever reason, then I'm also going to have some email marketing flows set up in the backend of my store to automatically remind the customer to purchase their product. And I promise you, having a system set up like this on your store is the most essential thing that any person who's actually serious about e-commerce and dropshipping should do. And I know when you probably hear the term email marketing, it sounds really complex and you think that you need to have a ton of copywriting experience and things like that. But I'm here to tell you that it's more simpler than ever, especially when we have tools like Omnisend that already have a bunch of pre-made workflows that we can set up in just a matter of minutes. So if you want, I'll leave a link down below. They have a free plan that anyone can try out. And once you're inside the platform, if you go into automations, we can explore all the different workflows that they have. So they already have a bunch of different workflows such as welcome series, abandoned carts, requests for your customers to make reviews on your store and things like that. And these are all designed to increase customer retention and basically build a further relationship with your customers so that you can get repeat purchases over time and not just depend on running ads for your store, which pretty much every beginner dropshipper tends to do. You don't want to be like that. You want to be the experienced, smart dropshipper who actually implements these systems in your store, because if you can make more sales out of email marketing, you're going to have more money to spend on Facebook ads and scale and outcompete your competition. So I'm going to start off by showing you some of the essential flows that I always set up on my stores as soon as I validate that my product's a winner. So I'm going to click on cart abandonment and I'm going to set up these two flows right here, which are called abandoned cart and abandoned checkout. So if we click into abandoned cart and take a look at the workflow, this is basically how it works. So when a customer adds the product into their cart and then they leave the store, they're going to be sent this very first email. And if we scroll down, this is just a preview of what it looks like. And then we can go ahead and edit the content if we want. And inside the email, it's basically just asking the customer what happened. And it's going to show the items that they previously had in their cart. And then it's just going to give them a simple button that they can click so that they can be redirected straight into the Shopify checkout and then buy our product. So if you want, you can change up the copywriting a little bit, or you can even use ChatGPT and just ask it to help you generate some copywriting for an abandoned cart workflow. But if you want, you can keep it really simple and just leave it as is, as sometimes this email can just be enough to get a customer to place an order because they simply just need to be reminded about your product. And then let's say if that email doesn't work for whatever reason, Omnisend is going to wait 11 hours before they send another follow-up email, which basically just says that we're still keeping your items right where you left them, and it's going to just remind the customer once again about their products. And if that email still doesn't work, within 12 more hours, it's going to send this final follow-up email. And if we take a look inside of it, this time it's going to offer the customer a 15% discount, which is going to incentivize them to hopefully purchase and eventually help make us that sale. So considering that this workflow is pretty much good to go, all we have to do is go up here and click on start workflow. And now within a matter of minutes, we already have an automated sequence that's going to work in the background and help us recover as much sales as possible. So that was just a quick example of one of the workflows that you could set up. Of course, you can continue to create as many workflows as you want. Some of the ones that I would recommend that you set up is definitely the welcome series and then also the abandoned checkout. The difference of the abandoned checkout and the abandoned cart is that when a customer actually proceeds to checkout, they are going to be placed in this workflow, whereas customers who add the product to cart but don't go to checkout are going to be placed in this one. I just wanted to clarify that. And then I'd also recommend clicking on post purchase and definitely set up this workflow right here called product reviews. This way, when you actually get orders into your store, you want some actual authentic reviews from your customers to help build more authority with your store. And then I'd also recommend setting up the cross-sell workflow and then scroll back up and then also choose the browse abandonment and then set up this workflow right here. And the way this one works is that it's going to send a follow-up email to your customers who just simply browse on your website but may not add any items to cart, but it's still going to take notice of that customer and remind them to check out our store in case they're ever interested in a later point in time. So again, all these workflows that I just showed you guys is all designed to help you make more sales and help incentivize repeat purchases from all of your customers, as these are the things that all of the top brands are doing. And if they are doing it, why not you? So after I set up all of these things on the back end of my store, I was pretty much ready for scaling. And now I'm going to show you the strategy that I used to be able to scale up to 800K. And it's actually very, very simple. All I did was I created a new CBO campaign, but I ran it at a much higher budget. So the highest that I went to was 3.6K. But of course, I started it off at something much lower, like around $500. And inside this campaign, I just had one broad targeting ad set. And then I just copied over all of my best creatives that I was testing in my initial testing campaign. So for example, if you're using the testing strategy that I showed early on in this video, these would be the same campaigns that you can use to continue testing more creatives for your products. So let's say if I finally have the product in my home and I start to record more videos for my products, basically what I would do inside of this existing testing campaign was duplicate the ad set itself. And then I can rename this to like batch number 2, which tells me that this is like my second batch of creatives that I want to test. And then inside of this ad set would be just my new collection of ads that I recorded from home. And if one of these ads ended up performing really well, then I would just copy it over to my main scaling campaign and then just put it inside of this one ad set. So this way I ultimately have a collection of all of my best winning ads just inside of this scaling campaign. And then for scaling the budgets, I basically just increased my budget by 20% every 1 to 2 days. And it was really just depending on the performance I was getting. So whenever I was getting a really profitable return on ad spend, then I would just scale up by 20%. And in case you don't know what return on ad spend number is profitable for you, then you can just use my ROAS calculator that I'll link down below in this video. And you just need to enter in your product price and how much it costs for you to fulfill it. And it's going to give you your break-even ROAS number. And basically any ROAS that you're getting on Facebook ads that is above this number, you know that you're profitable. And then you can just use this scale ROAS number as a benchmark that's going to tell you when you should be increasing your budget by 20%. So this number right here is just an estimate. You don't need to follow it, but I just created this as a guideline, especially for beginners who are just scaling for the first time. So after launching my first scaling campaigns, that's how I was able to hit my first 6-figure month in October. And this is when I knew that things started to get serious with my store. So whenever I start scaling up a store, there's always a number of things that I do to make my life a bit easier. The very first thing that I'll do is outsource customer support, because that's the last thing that I want to be dealing with, especially when I'm pushing heavy volume. And I personally like to hire all of my virtual assistants from onlinejobs.ph. You can find a ton of people that are already experienced with Shopify and dealing with customer support for dropshipping stores. And on this same platform, I will also make a listing and try to find video editors, because when you start scaling your store, the other thing that you also don't want to be doing that's going to take up a lot of your time is to make all of your ad creatives by yourself. So basically what I did is that I was filming all of the content for my product at home, but then I hired a video editor to piece all of that footage together and make more iterations based on my existing winning creatives. And then once I outsourced everything that I needed to, the next thing that I did was negotiate with my dropshipping supplier to get a lower cost on my product. Because once I started scaling higher and doing 6 figures per month, that means that my supplier needed to order more units in bulk from the factories in China. And usually the supplier is able to get a discount because they're ordering a ton of inventory all at once from that factory. And that also means if they are getting a discount, then that means they should be passing over some of the discount with you. So by simply negotiating this as we started scaling up, I was able to reduce my product cost by $1 to $2. And I promise you, something as little as that can make a huge difference, especially once you start scaling up higher. And aside from negotiating prices, I also discussed with my supplier to improve the quality of our product. So the first edition of the product that we were dropshipping had a few issues with certain parts of the product, and my supplier was actually able to source a different factory that had better quality materials, and they were able to create a much better version of the product that I was selling. And ultimately, we were able to fix a lot of the issues with the first version of the product, and this made me comfortable to be able to scale that product, especially in Q4, because I knew that I was going to have less customer complaints and overall more happy customers. And then once I improved the quality of my product, I also made sure to private label it and also have custom packaging so that we can actually make our store appear more like a brand and differentiate ourselves from all the other dropshippers. So in order to create a custom package for my product, the first thing that I did was I asked my dropshipping supplier to give me the die line file of the product package that the Chinese factory was already using. And a die line file is just something that looks like this, where it's just a full image of the entire product package, but in a flat style like this. This way we can get a better idea of all of the different panels and different graphics we want to put on every single panel of this product package. So of course, when I first started getting into product package design, I had zero clue what I should be putting on all of my different panels. So what I did is I went on this website called behance.net, and then I typed in product packaging. And from here, I just took a look at all of these different product package designs so that I could take inspo and see how I can adapt that for my product. And let's say if I liked this design and this is the style I wanted to go for, then the next thing that I did is that I went on Fiverr and I looked for product package designers. And there's literally a ton of designers that you can choose from. I would recommend just choosing the one that has the highest ratings possible, because they're probably going to do a good job for you. And then once you choose a designer to work with, typically what they're going to ask from you is going to be the die line file that I was talking about earlier. And then they're also going to ask for inspiration photos so that they can get an idea of the design that you're looking for. And then what happens from here is that your designer is going to create a full mock-up die line file with your branding and with your logos and pictures and things like that. And then you can go ahead and take a look at it and then make all of the necessary changes that you need. So that's the way that I did it a few months ago. And this was back before we even had access to ChatGPT image generation. So what I would personally do to make my life a billion times easier is to just use ChatGPT to help make a mock-up photo for you. So going back to this Minecraft torch lamp, I just took a few photos of that product and I put in this prompt here where I just asked them to create an image of a fully assembled product package inspired by this product. And then I told them my brand name, gave it a few instructions on how I wanted the package to look like, and then also listed some of the main features that I want to be shown on on the package. And here's the package design it was able to create, which I think looks pretty good. So then I asked it to create a mock-up design of the back of the package, and this is what it was able to come up with. And then ultimately I told them to create a die-line image file of the entire package so that I can get an idea of how this could probably look like. And then what you can do is simply send over this die-line file to the designer on Fiverr, and then you guys can continue to work together to replace certain elements on the package with more of the things that you want. So for example, instead of having our brand name on like every single one of these panels, you can of course just tell your designer to add specific other elements on the panels so that the package just looks a little bit better. So again, that's just one example of how you can create custom packaging for your product. There's of course a lot of other things that you can do, such as applying the logo on your product itself. And for that, you can literally just go on Canva or Photoshop and then just create an example of how you want the logo to be placed on your product. And then you can send that to your supplier, and then the factory in China should be able to do it. And there's also other things that you can do, such as adding thank you cards into your package, which is just going to make the experience for your customers just a bit better. And in case you're using Zendrop, you can actually use their branding feature right here, where you can actually add your own custom thank you cards with every single one of your orders and also put in your brand logo just to give that nice branded experience from the start. So that is basically everything that I did to take this store from zero to over $800,000 in just a few months. Like I said before, this store was really just a side project for me, and I haven't really had much time to continue focusing my efforts on this store. And this is why the sales are a lot slower than what we had in Q4. But I definitely plan to start testing some more creatives for this store in the near future. And if I start to get some more results on this store, then I'll definitely be sure to share the updates with you guys on this channel. And with that being said, that pretty much wraps up the end of this video. I hope you guys did enjoy it. If you did, be sure to drop a like and subscribe to this channel. And also be sure to join my free Discord group as well, so that you could be connected with other like-minded entrepreneurs who are also doing e-commerce and dropshipping. And also make sure to follow me on Twitter, as I plan to be more active on that platform and share some more tips and strategies that I'm currently doing in real time for all of my stores that I otherwise might not be mentioning on my channel. And again, I thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one.